Welcome to Digication Scholars Conversations. I'm your host, Kelly Driscoll. In this episode, you'll hear part one of my conversation with Kaitlyn Coskun, a recent graduate of Texas Christian University. More links and information about today's conversation can be found on Digication's Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Full episodes of Digication Scholars Conversations can be found on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. Welcome to Digication Scholars Conversations. I'm your host, Kelly Driscoll, and today I am so excited to introduce Kaitlyn Coskun. Kaitlyn is a recent graduate of Texas Christian University, where she received a Bachelor of Business Administration and Marketing, that was a mouthful, and a Bachelor of Science in Fashion Merchandising. Welcome, Kaitlyn.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, Kelly. I'm so excited to get into this today.
Yes, me too. So before we hopped on to our recording here today, I was telling Kaitlyn that when I discovered her beautiful combination of her experiences at TCU, that I was just completely amazed by the quality of the work. And it's such a beautiful showcase of your experience there. And it's an amazing, it really just truly exemplifies this integrative learning process that in higher ed educators are so passionate about. And you have such a wonderful story to share about your experience and also what you're doing now, which I'm kind of tempted to start there. So I think some people listening may not be so familiar with what fashion merchandising is all about and maybe what you have been able to achieve as a recent graduate. So I would kind of like to start with what you're doing now, and then we can kind of work our way backwards because it's so great with what you've already achieved as a recent graduate.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. I am currently working at Neiman Marcus, which is a luxury retailer, nationally known here in the US. And this is my first company full-time job out of college. And I've been here about 2.5 years. And it was honestly such a pinch me moment when I ended up getting this role straight out of school.
Yes.
There's a lot of backstory as to kind of me looking and trying to figure out what it is I wanted to do, which I feel like a lot of college students approaching their senior year just have no idea unless you're on one of those tracks where, when you're kind of like just a kid in high school, like medical, or you end up going finance, there's like steps that you follow and then you end up in that position. Fashion is a whole nother realm where there's just so many possibilities, and that kind of plays in with the creative side of it. So when I was graduating, I looked into a lot of different companies, definitely did my research, trying to figure out where I wanted to go. I did go to TCU, which is based here in Texas. And otherwise, I didn't have any ties here per se, but Neiman Marcus Group is based here. And it was one of the first ones that I was really looking at. It definitely has that brand recognition, especially if you're in the fashion world. So I applied to a bunch of jobs there that seemed right up my alley with my marketing and fashion merchandising background, and ended up landing this image coordinator position that focuses on our overseas and remote photo shoots, which, if you know me, that's like the perfect combination of who I am. I never knew that like this job existed before I came across it online, which goes to show that really just things happen for a reason and things will play out how they're supposed to, and to just have faith in the process. But in this position, I have grown a lot in the past 2.5 years. Starting off, the core of the job is managing the imagery that comes from our photo shoots that are done remotely, which is everything not shot here in Dallas, where we're based. So that includes Milan, Paris, London, and New York City, which I wish that I was on location, but I handle everything remotely here in Dallas. But it does give me the opportunity to travel if I want to. just not for the job, unfortunately. Not yet. Fingers crossed. Um, but yeah, to put it simply, I manage the imagery that's going to go on our e-commerce website. So when you're online shopping for a shirt, for example, you're going to click on it and see a couple different angles. Maybe there's 5. Depending on the company, there'll be a different number of images per item.
Mm-hmm.
I narrow down thousands and thousands. I've worked on like hundreds of thousands of images to the ones that really fit our brand image at the time and the direction that we're going in based off the platform, which, if you're not familiar with Neiman Marcus, we are a company of 2, which is Neiman Marcus and Bergdorf Goodman, which Bergdorf Goodman is based in New York, whereas Neiman's is based here in Dallas. And I have specialized in the Bergdorf Goodman imagery. While I'm still well versed in the Neiman Marcus one as well, I have a counterpart who works on that I have trained up to this point.
Nice.
So yeah, it was very exciting post-college going into it because I've always loved imagery. Like, I'm such a visual person. Just it's so natural and intuitive to me to go through images and find the one that really encapsulates the perfect design elements of like balance and texture and color. And I think it just came from an early age. I did it without even thinking about a career through social media as a high schooler and younger. So then when I came across here, I felt greatly equipped. And since I've been here, I have definitely grown into more of a junior producer position where I help further manage the overall production of the photo shoots. So that's from start to finish of getting everyone organized, getting the right people and teams in place, budgeting, negotiating rates, getting everyone to the right location, making sure everything is well organized logistically, and then providing image guides to the photographers on what exactly needs to be done with the right direction, getting those images back, which is at the core of my job, and going through those, curating it for our company to put out the best product for customers to end up buying our merchandise. So yeah, that's a bit
extraordinary. Yeah. I love your story, and you clearly have a creative soul, and I think such a gift for kind of storytelling, and you've done that through both your words and your imagery and your design aesthetic. You're a very clear communicator on multiple levels, which you really exuded through what you created using Digication, and is clearly at play in your work today. Thank you so much for sharing what you've been doing since graduation. So now we'll rewind a little bit, and I would love for you to share kind of how you found your way to TCU. I recall, I think you're a Southern California gal.
Yep, sure am.
Right? Yes.
And you guys are based in California too, right?
Well, I was there for a time. So I was actually born in Southern California, but grew up in Virginia, and always wanted to move back there. I just had this like magnetic pull. So after college and having some kids, we were just like, all right, if we're going to do this, we need to do this now before they all start going through elementary school. So we did make the leap, and I lived out there for about 10 years. And now I'm back on the Southeast. Yeah.
Okay.
Close to the family again, but it was wonderful. We were in the Bay Area.
Oh, yes. Yep. Yes. I was down in more Southern California, a little north of LA, but all of California has my heart. Kind of same thing, though. I haven't been there my whole life, but certainly most of it, and my upbringing. I wasn't born there, though, so a little bit different. Born in Kansas City, lived in Turkey for a little bit, and then moved there, and then now I'm here in Dallas.
Yes.
We'll see what's next.
You've had some time living and studying abroad, which is great. And we'll talk about that more too, because you've detailed some of that in the pages of the work that you've created in Digication. So, so being in California, were you there for high school?
Yes, I was there
Okay.
for high school.
So, when you were thinking about what you wanted to do next for college, what were you kind of thinking at the time? You know, as you're getting ready to start your senior year and think about where you wanted to apply, did you already know that TCU is going to be your destiny, or what kind of things were you thinking about? Did you know what you wanted to major in? I'd love to hear it.
Certainly had no idea, which I feel like a lot of people can relate to. Going through high school and just my upbringing, I knew I had an interest in fashion.
Mm-hmm.
But beyond that, I really had no specialization or further idea of it. So going into like, I think it was about junior years when you really start applying to colleges, back in high school. I visited a ton of schools through my high school. We had a good program that brought me all along the East Coast. And then I also saw a lot in California as well. I visited so many schools, I can't even remember the full number, but I'm definitely a thorough person. So I had to,
Wow.
exactly. I had to do my research and I had to visit in person. That was always my criteria. And my parents were so supportive in that as well, which I'm truly blessed for. But I'm such a it's just an
Mm-hmm.
intuitive feeling kind of person. Like my gut feeling
Mm-hmm.
is something that I certainly like to trust and follow. So kind of going on to campuses was a major part of actually making my final decision. And TCU, I get asked this question and it's so random is like the simplest answer. Like I have no family in Texas. The only connection I had the only connection I had was my mom's best friend went there. And she just casually mentioned that she think that I would enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I ended up visiting and I was really looking. My two top schools at the end of the day ended up being TCU and SMU, which are both based
Mm-hmm.
here in Dallas, the DFW area.
Mm-hmm.
So again, not really sure why that they both happened to be here. I guess it was just meant to be, but they both had really good business programs and fashion programs, and that was where my mind was going,
Yeah.
looking for a college and a further education. And that was definitely influenced by my family. My dad was the one certainly encouraging me to also get that business degree along with my fashion. He thought that that would
Mm-hmm.
be very helpful just in career pursuit down the line. And I totally agreed. So my first initiative was to find good business schools that had also a fashion program. And
Mm-hmm.
so I ended up applying to TCU and got in early action, I believe, and I applied for the business school. So
Mm-hmm.
my first line was that BBA in marketing. And
Mm-hmm.
then once I got in with that, it wasn't until freshman year that I spoke with a career counselor and showed them that I had this passion for fashion and certainly wanted to do some combination of it. And I really worked with their career counselors to make that work because it's actually not very common to do two completely separate majors all in 4 years. Just time wise, it's a
Yeah.
lot easier to do two majors within the same department.
Right. Right.
Yeah. And so it was certainly a struggle at first. And there was times freshman year where I had no idea if I was even going to be able to make it work. But I was definitely dead set on it. And I think that drive helped me in the end in just continuing to pursue it because I did speak to certain counselors who said, like, this is not going to be feasible. And I didn't want to take a longer term to get the degrees. I didn't want to go past 4 years. I really just wanted to be able to get it done in that time period. And so what ended up happening was I had to create my own 4-year plan with the assistance of the counselors and my family. But we had to place all the different classes, figure out how it would work, because it's honestly very complex when classes are available, like what semester, especially with fashion, it being a smaller program than the business school. And so what I ended up having to do was take 1 to 3 classes every summer and stay on campus, basically, instead of going home and taking that as a full break, which was a sacrifice I was willing to make in order to get to my end goal. And I did enjoy it as well. They were often classes that I had a good time with. And most of them ended up being my fashion-based ones. I would say maybe 1 or 2 were business, but it ended up working out. And I think I also had to add some extra courses during the school year too. And so instead of doing 15 hours, I was maybe doing 18 every now and then. But it was something I knew I wanted, and I basically just had to figure it out to do it. And so I did, and I'm so happy that I did, because graduating with my class was such a good feeling compared to what I would assume waiting another semester and not being able to do that with my community would have felt. And it was also just a personal accomplishment as well, just knowing that I was able to do so. But getting to the point of how I chose the direction further with fashion was my family. I grew up in a very fashion forward family. Both of my parents worked in the fashion industry. My dad actually founded his own company. He's from Turkey, and my mom is from the US, and they met working on the job, actually, both in fashion. Yeah, so their love story starts there. And my dad's company luckily ended up growing, and so both of my parents worked there throughout my upbringing. Up until just about recently, they ended up retiring, but their company was based in Turkey. It was a full service, best way I like to describe it is like a full service apparel sourcing and production agency. So they worked with a handful of well-known brands and really provided, at the end of the day, like trend research, product development, sourcing, production. My dad had really close connections with the factories based there. And growing up, they wanted me to be raised in America. And so that was when we made that switch from living in Turkey to California at a young age. I was about 4, so barely remember that, but I'll never forget because I do really appreciate their consideration for me. And growing up, though, they were able to continue that company based there with other family members leading it on the ground, and then my parents opening a marketing branch here in California. So I was surrounded by fashion. There was always samples in the house. My dad, when friends would come over, he'd hand them out, and it was such a fun thing as a kid to see, just playing around with clothes. And then I also was able to travel with them, which is what their new roles entailed with marketing and connections with different companies and vendors. And it was all based in Europe. So from a young age, I was able to travel around to so many countries, like probably 13 by the time I was in high school. Yeah. And I think that's something I'll forever be grateful for from such a young age, to be exposed to so many different cultures and people, work ethic. And at the time, I certainly didn't understand it, I would say, up into to a certain extent. And then there was a moment where it shifted and I began to become a lot more interested in the actual business side of it, where I would
Mhm.
actually sit in on meetings and participate to an extent that certainly shaped my interest in fashion moving
Mhm.
forward.
Mhm. Oh, well, it just sounds like growing up, you had such a just rich experience being able to watch your family and all of their entrepreneurship, and you clearly have this kind of love for design and fashion in your genes.
Yep, I certainly do. I would be that person just playing around in like high heels in my closet
Uh-huh.
from like age 4. And then also, I feel like it so easily translates to another interest of mine, which is interior design and
Mhm.
decorating. And I was constantly rearranging my rooms, like moving my
Uh-huh.
bed. And as I've gotten older and connected with my parents a lot more on a more personal, adult level,
Yeah.
so many of the things that I did and I was interested in intuitively were things that matched what they did as a younger age. And my mom was like, I
Mhm.
did the exact same thing as a kid. And I'm just like, oh, like we are real. I truly am like a product of them in the best ways possible. So
Oh, but it
it's been
also
fun.
seems like you also really kind of soaked in this work ethic that you spoke to also, possibly because
Certainly.
you were growing up around them working. And I'm sure as a married couple working together that, it was just part of the in and out of daily life. There was no 9 to 5, right? It was part of
Yeah.
part
It's
of
so
everything.
it's so
Yeah.
weird growing up now and realizing that because I only know my parents working from home.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful for that, honestly, because it gave me such a greater opportunity to be around them and also in
Yes.
a professional way, like you said, learn from their work ethic and actually see it firsthand, which I feel like a lot of kids aren't able to for when they grow up with parents who go into a job and they're not able to really see the ins and outs of how it works. So that
Yeah.
is a great point
Yeah.
and something I'm actually kind of just now understanding a little bit better. That makes a lot of sense.
Yes. Yes. And I'm glad that you have the opportunity to work from home also.
Yeah, I know. Which such a blessing. And I mean, that's also come along from COVID, of course. I think the
Yes.
company, I started with the company post COVID since I graduated in
Mhm.
2021, which is a whole nother thing that I could talk about forever. But I started it with a remote, the position was generalized as a remote position, kind of hybrid, where I do have a base to
Mhm.
go into here.
Yeah.
And it's fluctuated ever since. But I think it depends on the industry at this point. I still think we're not 100% able to see the trajectory of how that's going to work, but everyone getting this taste of being able to work from home and work remotely, I feel like is really kind of creating this whole new dynamic with our careers moving forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And
Uh,
it's been really fun to hear, this part of your story too. Digication, I co-founded it with my
yes.
husband. We technically started the business before we got married.
Oh my
that
gosh.
was that was a little over 20 years ago.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
and
Congratulations.
thank
Yeah.
you. And we've been raising our children. I think we went remote. I'm thinking it was about. It's definitely been over 10 years. It may be like 13 years now that
Oh,
we
wow.
made
Yeah.
that switch.
You're ahead
And
of the game.
well, we felt really lucky. Yeah, but
Yeah.
so I had, 3 young children at the time. We had our daughter, and then 18 months later had twin boys.
Oh, wow.
And we had started our company very young, and had lots of young employees at the time. And other people were starting to get married and have kids, and some people wanted to move other places. And, we were just like, we want to keep you as employees. We are starting to need more flexibility with our schedule and, balancing work and life. And, just like your parents, we were kind of like Digication was just part of our lives. It wasn't just our job, it still is. And, we were like, let's just try this. So we stopped having a physical office and people started working from home. There was a lot of Skype at the time. I'm really glad that things have evolved.
I remember Skyping because I had so much family overseas, so we would use that platform all the time.
Yes.
But Zoom's become our no go to. But now maybe Zencastr can be.
Well, Zencastr is great for podcasts, but yes, we love Zoom and Slack and all those things. So it's been an evolution for sure. But we're always hoping that our children kind of have that same experience. They've grown up watching education grow up, and so I'm sure they're picking up on things that they may not even realize. But it's definitely been really fun. So it's fun to hear your perspective too, some overlap, and I'm sure you've got extraordinary parents. They took that leap to come to the U.S. to start building out things here, with already having some success in Turkey. And that's a brave thing. Thing to do. And it sounds like it worked out really well.
Yeah, luckily it did. And I'm so proud of them. And as I'm here now, kind of just starting off my career, I'm taking more and more inspiration from it, because there's so many things that can go through your head of like where you want to go with what you're doing and trying to figure out that path. And do I want to continue working in a corporate 9-to-5 kind of job, even though there's flexibility? Or do I want to create my own company and follow in my family's footsteps? And we'll kind of time will tell on that one. We'll see where I end up. But
I hope we can stay in touch. I would love to know, it just sounds like you're on a beautiful trajectory. And I love that. Here's a preview of what's coming up next in part 2 of my conversation with Kaitlyn Coskun, a recent graduate of Texas Christian University.
The quote actually that I have on my first page of my About Me on my portfolio, it kind of goes in line with that there's really only 2 things in life that are in your total control, and that's your attitude and your effort.